Greetings, I'm Olivia, 36 years old and currently embracing a new chapter in life as a single woman. I was previously married to Nathan, a man who over time revealed himself to be quite a difficult partner. His parents, David and Claire, were equally challenging, and together they created a toxic environment that made me feel unwelcome and uncomfortable. Both Nathan and I had successful careers and were financially independent, yet his parents never recognized my contributions. Instead, they painted me as someone leeching off their son. Nathan fueled this narrative by making me out to be lucky for marrying him, implying that I sought a lavish lifestyle he supposedly provided. The truth, though, was far different. I was the one managing our household's finances, but Nathan continued to maintain the false impression that I was dependent on him to protect what they believed was Nathan's wealth. His parents insisted we sign a prenuptial agreement. I didn't mind the prenup itself, but what hurt me was that Nathan never bothered to discuss it with me. He lied to his parents, claiming I earned far less than him, when in reality he had lost his job 2 years earlier and was fully dependent on me. I tolerated constant disrespect from both him and his parents out of love, but it became painfully clear I had made a mistake in marrying him as the months dragged on. Nathan's lack of ambition and refusal to find a job drained my patience and my savings. The final straw came when I decided to purchase a house with my own money. I had inherited a sum from a relative and worked hard to save up for this purchase. I found the perfect house, bought it entirely on my own, and put the title in my name. Nathan hadn't contributed a cent, but that didn't stop him from complaining. During a family dinner, Nathan's parents excitedly asked about the new house, assuming their son had bought it. When his mother asked if the house was in both of our names, I fully expected Nathan to set the record straight. Instead, he stunned me by claiming that he had paid for the entire house, boasting about his non-existent success and savings. His parents showered him with praise for being such a responsible provider, completely disregarding my role. I was furious, but I managed to hold my tongue in front of his family. Once we were alone, I confronted Nathan, demanding to know why he had lied. He brushed it off, saying I didn't want to disappoint them. I'll never tell them I lost my job. They'd be crushed. What was I supposed to do? Maybe not lie and take credit for something you didn't do, I shot back, but Nathan refused to admit he was wrong. What's done is done, he said dismissively. I'm not going back to humiliate myself. Let them believe what they want. That moment made me see Nathan for who he truly was, someone who cared more about saving face than respecting me or being honest. It was clear that for the past 2 years he had been using me. Still, things got even worse. One evening, Nathan's parents arrived unexpectedly at our doorstep, bags in hand. Without consulting me, Nathan had invited them to move in, claiming it was his house. He told them it was his idea to give them a place to stay, further feeding his lies. At that moment I knew I couldn't tolerate the deceit any longer. Nathan had not only misled his parents but also taken advantage of my trust and generosity. That's when I began to seriously consider what my next steps needed to be. My disbelief was overwhelming as I processed what was happening. At no point had I ever agreed to Nathan's decision to let his parents move into our house, and now it was clear that his lie about owning the house had spiraled out of control. Despite my growing frustration, I held back from confronting him in front of his family. I knew one thing for sure: I would not allow them to stay in my house, but I also knew I needed a tactful way to handle this without escalating the situation. Meanwhile, Nathan's parents seemed oblivious to the reality of the situation. They continued to revel in their delusion. Praising Nathan for his supposed success, they marveled at the size of the house, talking excitedly about how perfect it was and eagerly discussing which rooms they would claim with no sense of hesitation. They even mentioned taking the largest bedroom. Frustration mounted as I listened to their presumptuous plans. It was time to address this privately. I suggested that Nathan and I step aside for a conversation, but he, clearly sensing the tension, began avoiding my gaze. He knew he was in trouble, but instead of facing the issue, he tried to sidestep the confrontation by suggesting we discuss everything openly in front of his parents. Are you sure about that, Nathan? I asked, not backing down. If you don't mind having this conversation in front of them, then neither do I. Nathan, with a weak attempt at maintaining control, responded, Olivia, go ahead and tell me what you want. I didn't hesitate. In a firm tone, I made it crystal clear, your parents will not be living in this house. I made it clear how upset I was that he hadn't consulted me before inviting his parents, questioning the appropriateness of his decision. In response, his mother launched a fierce defense, insisting it was Nathan's house and that he could do as he pleased. The tension between us hinted at deeper issues in our relationship, leaving me to ponder what lay ahead. Of course, he doesn't need your permission to have us here. Know your place, Olivia. You can't speak to our son like that. Watch your tone, or you might find yourself asked to leave. Stop acting so spoiled and show us to the largest room. We can't wait any longer. Lead us to our quarters. No, I won't be doing that, Claire. My boldness left Claire and David stunned. I was torn between resentment and pity for them. Yes, they had an air of entitlement, but Nathan was to blame for misleading them. If he hadn't invited them, we wouldn't be in this predicament. Yet I recognized they weren't completely innocent either, especially since they were standing in my home making threats that was hard to overlook. What do you mean, Olivia? If you refuse to show us to the room our son promised us, we'll have to take matters into our own hands. We left our rented apartment for this very reason. We came here today because Nathan vowed to take care of us. He's a good son who knows how to look after his parents. He invited us to stay in his new home and we broke our lease for it. In that case, Claire and David, you've made a serious mistake. I doubt you can stay here, much less claim the largest room. How dare you, Olivia? We don't need your permission to be here. Our son will take us to our room if you won't. Remember, this house isn't yours to decide if we can stay or go. You've misunderstood, Claire. I suspect Nathan hasn't told you yet. This house belongs to me, not him, so the largest room isn't available to you. You'll have to find somewhere else to stay. What? That can't be true. Nathan told us he bought the house. You're lying. Is that so? Why don't you ask Nathan? I'm sure he'll set the record straight. We will, Olivia. Nathan, tell your wife she's lying. Confirm that this house is yours just as you've told us before. David and Claire are waiting for your confirmation. I couldn't blame them. It was Nathan who had misled his parents, but he just stood there avoiding eye contact and staring at the floor. Slowly his parents began to realize there might be some truth to my words, even if they struggled to accept it. They had always seen me as a gold digger with a mediocre job, while they viewed Nathan as a hard-working success. They pressed Nathan, why aren't you saying anything? You told us this house was yours. Speak up, Nathan. Tell her she can't kick us out. I jumped in. What can he say? He's been deceiving you all along. I even have the property papers to prove I'm the sole owner of this house. No way, that can't be true. You have a simple job and limited finances. Our son has a significant income. There's no way this house belongs to you. I corrected Claire. Your son had a substantial Income, yes, but he failed to mention he was fired 2 years ago and has been relying on my salary since then. And for the record, I have a great job. Just because I don't flaunt it doesn't mean I'm financially unstable. The shock on David and Claire's faces was unmistakable as I revealed the truth. Meanwhile, Nathan continued to avoid their gaze. They kept urging him to confirm what I'd said, but he stayed silent until I declared, enough drama for today, David and Claire. I've hosted you long enough. It's time for you to gather your things and leave. Nathan protested. Olivia, you can't just throw my parents out like that. They ended their lease to be with us. They have nowhere else to go. You can't leave them on the streets. Nathan, I can and I will. No consultation happened before these choices were made, and you showed no consideration for their place in my home. While this may be your house, he shot back, I'm also your husband. If I say my parents can stay, they will. You can't evict them. This house belongs to our son too, and everything that is yours is also his. You can't force us out. Claire, I can remove you, and Nathan is no exception since you're still legally married to me. Nathan, I'll draft an eviction notice for you. Don't worry, you won't remain married for long. What do you mean, Olivia? Are you planning to divorce me? Yes, my dear husband, I am. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow to set up an appointment. We should be able to serve you with the divorce papers in 10 days. Panic washed over Nathan at the mention of divorce, and he exploded in anger, threatening to take half the house and claim alimony. I reminded him of the prenuptial agreement he and his parents had forced me to sign, which stated we couldn't claim alimony from each other and that our private assets would remain separate in the event of a divorce. Nathan, suddenly recalling the prenup, was visibly taken aback. It became clear to both him and his parents what the implications were, and they suggested we hold off on an immediate divorce in favor of having a mature discussion about our situation. Olivia, let's take a step back and talk this over. I'm sure we can find a compromise that works for everyone. I don't care about what works for you, Nathan. I won't be a financial crutch for you, and I refuse to let your parents take advantage of me after how they've treated me. That was in the past, Olivia. It's been years. Surely you can move past it. It was just a minor issue. You and your mother threatened to kick me out just a few minutes ago because I wouldn't let you stay. No point in making excuses now. You and Claire need to leave or I'll call the cops. I'd prefer Nathan leave too, but he'll get an eviction notice if necessary. Nathan, David and Claire pleaded with me to reconsider. They had terminated their lease expecting to move in with us. Nathan thought he could charm me into compliance as he had before, but he was mistaken. I was done being the family doormat. They could fend for themselves. After an hour of them still refusing to leave, I made the call. The police arrived and escorted them out while Nathan yelled at me for embarrassing his parents. I reminded him he had a month to vacate my house, prompting him to shift his tone to one of apology and regret. From that night on, I barred him from my room. He took refuge in the guest room until he was served with an eviction notice. Meanwhile, his parents, having spent a chunk of their savings on a hotel, struggled to find a new place to rent. Surprisingly, they didn't allow Nathan to move in with them, leaving him scrambling for accommodations. It seemed they wanted Nathan to face the consequences of his lies. Their relationship soured quickly, with each blaming the other for their predicament. His parents cut off their support, realizing Nathan was only worth something to them when he had money. He ended up couch surfing at friends' places until he found a job. I filed for divorce without hesitation. There was no way I could stay with him after the disrespect he'd shown in how he revealed himself to be a vain, selfish man far from the person I once loved. Nathan tried to convince me to change my mind, but I stood my ground, refusing to be taken advantage of any longer. Since we didn't have children, the divorce was finalized after 3 months of separation. During that time I focused on rebuilding myself and even started dating again. Nathan still clings to the hope that we can reconcile, but that possibility exists only in his dreams.